Well, I know how you're concerned about this swine flu situation, so next hour we'll devote the entire hour to taking your calls with Alex Jones and Stephen Quayle. Stephen Quayle, of course, is the author and primer for Understanding Bioterrorism called Breathe No Evil. Isn't that ironic? First published in 1996. Here's Stephen Quayle. Stephen, how are you?
Good evening, George, and we're talking about probably the most important subject that you and I have addressed in the times we've been on Coast together as far as no longer warning. Now it's in the implementation phase, and I think it's important that people understand. You and I were doing a show together, George. I looked up the records back in 2003, 2004, where the head of Porton-Down, the British Ministry of Defense, Dr. David Kelly, supposedly committed suicide. On the show that we did that, and I remember I said he was murdered. Subsequently, some of the great investigators have proven that he's murdered. But what this is getting to is the fact that whenever a virus is dug up from the past, as in the 1918 Spanish flu, it's designed to be basically understood so it can be created into a weapon. And now we have the word unusual being applied to this variation of swine flu, and because it's got components of three different types of DNA strains. So it is my contention right out of the chute that this is a genetically altered bioweapon, and the question is it tied in with a much bigger picture? Is this just the first salvo in a very dark and dreadful chapter that's going to be written in the U.S. and world's history? And I think that based on what you and I and Alex can put together tonight, we can paint a picture that is so far removed from conspiracy to be in your face just by public documents. For instance, in 1996, Air Force put out a document claiming that by 2009, 30 million people would be dead from influenza. How did they know that?
Isn't that interesting? Here's the other artist of the program tonight, Alex Jones, the award-winning documentary filmmaker, political researcher, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, truly at the forefront of alternative media. Alex Jones joining us on Coast to Coast. Hello, Alex.
George, thanks for including me on this very important broadcast.
Likewise. I do not recall if you two have been together for a full program on this show. Have you, together?
You know, I think there was some roundtable.
Roundtable, yes.
Yes, but no, I don't think I've ever been on just with Steve, so that's great.
So here we are. Stephen, Alex, and here I am, and this will be a roundtable for the next couple hours, plus we'll take calls next hour as well. We just heard from Stephen, Alex, who believes that this was concocted in a laboratory and released on us. Your take?
Well, my problem is I'm sitting here with about 150-plus documents and reports, including the one we broke just a month and a half ago at Infowars.com about that Air Force prospectus saying that they thought there would be a massive flu outbreak back in 1996, in 2009. So I just have information overload here, but I want people to listen to me very, very carefully because this is so important. This is clearly a designer virus. This is clearly been man-made. Now, is it a mass pandemic? Is it a virus that will kill millions of people? We don't know that. But the way it is swine, which is pig, for those that don't know, human and bird, all combined together. I have talked to now 6 different virologists, 5 different medical doctors, talked to them, several of them today, and they're all saying that it's 100 to 1 that this is engineered. And then even CNN had a retired top general on today involved in researching bioweapons, saying we need to look at this being made in a laboratory. But then on top of that, you have the pieces of it. I mean, it's very rare to have 3 of them mixing together from 3 different organisms, 3 different animals.
Absolutely.
Then almost every flu, in fact, I can't find an instance of a flu that wasn't generated in the East. That's how it's always worked. There's 2 different flu seasons in 2 different hemispheres. And so they're saying this came out of Mexico. This was, in some cauldron in Mexico. And then also the flu season is over. So not only, you add all these factors together, all the smart money, and even anybody who can rub 2 brain cells together knows this is engineered. Then we find out, according to the BBC and others, that the Mexican government knew about this back on the 18th, and that FEMA knew about it, started doing drills 2 weeks ago for a massive flu pandemic. Suddenly we saw stories in Tennessee, California, and other places about the Army and Marines running checkpoints on highways without even asking people. Then we interviewed...
and then we hear about the FEMA camps. Remember that?
Exactly, and then people, quote, debunk those when it's in major newspapers. And in fact, that was my next issue, and when we have time later in the hour, I can get into it. People keep saying there's no mass graves. Well, we were sent, just like we broke the Mayak report and the big federal report, where it was saying gun owners and Christians and Ron Paul bumper stickers and veterans are the number one threat and basically terrorists. We received... from people in multiple states, including New York. These are posted right now on a story called Plans for Mass Graves Confirmed, Government Surveying Cemetery Readiness for Flu Outbreak, all over the country. They are going to all the major cemeteries saying, can you get ready to bury hundreds of thousands, on your back 40 for a massive flu outbreak? And then emergency managers in Illinois and Indiana, and I called them and talked to them off, record, and confirmed what was put in the newscaster website and others, that FEMA has come in and said, we want you to harden government buildings, even in small towns, and prepare for millions of dead. And then all over the country, CDC, Centers for Disease Control, plastic coffins being deployed everywhere. And then, lastly, you add to that things like the Rocky Mountain News, February 2003, February 11, 2003, in Inside Denver, state prepares for bioterrorism. Executive order gives governors additional powers, and they say they did this because the feds told them to. Quote, incinerators, mass graves, camps, and during top-off and during these tabletop exercises, Dark Winter and other drills they've done, they admittedly trained to put people in sports stadiums and lockdown cities. So then we look at Prince Philip and Ted Turner and the UN and the Biological Diversity Assessment 1996 saying they want to, quote, reduce the world population by at least 80%. And they said that a airborne super flu that was transgenic with all these different species would be the perfect way to do it. And that we need to cut the population of England by half, Australia by half, U.S. by half. They're now announcing one-child policies they want to push. That's what the green carbon footprint and carbon tax is all about. So remember, I'm not saying that this is going to be a mega pandemic.
No, because we don't know that. But what we can say is it's very unusual that these mixes, as you just pointed out, Alex, will be put together and released on the public naturally. It doesn't happen like that.
And then it starts in Mexico, not in the east as it always does. But
and as you said, this isn't the flu season.
This isn't the flu season, and it's coming out of Mexico, not Asia, and then it's clearly engineered. So what I'm saying is this a beta test? Well, now the mainstream media, the governments are saying, the World Health Organization is saying, it may mutate into something deadly. They're saying, just like the 1918 flu, Spanish flu that killed at least 40 million people, that was respiratory and hit 18 to 30-year-old healthy males and females, the most virile. That's why so many mainline scientists and virologists are so concerned.
Well, and Alex, as Stephen has reported over the years, you too, and on this program, Stephen, how many microbiologists do we have left to fight this? There's 80 of them dead, at least.
More than that. And most of them that could have fought this, and that would have been the telltale investigators, have been systematically liquidated, with David Kelly being the foremost. Now, I think what people need to understand is this, that even with Baxter Pharmaceuticals and those companies that could prepare a vaccine, which normally takes from 9 to 12 months.
Now, that's the same company that accidentally sent this virus, a virus, out to various countries, right?
18 different countries. Now, George, we've been doing this way too long, and Alex and I and you have got a cynicism based on investigation. I think that's well merited. The fact is that I am not going to trust any announcements from the government that they have a vaccine for this, because number one, in developing a bioweapon, this is something that most people need to understand. When any government develops a bioweapons, ours, China, Russia, whoever, they always develop the vaccine, or if it's a chemical weapon, they develop the antidote. The thing that I think is really scary is that if we had a melodramatic presentation of a city, let's say in the United States, southern city, with massive amounts of bodies, massive carnage, and just the most horrible images that most people have ever seen in the United States on television, I believe that most people could be scared into taking an unproven vaccine, and if you don't take it, that's your ticket to the camps. And by the way, when the man who gave me the red list, the blue list, and the green list, that was a man that worked for the federal government. I have not heard from him in over a decade. That when I tried to track him down, it appeared he had been murdered, but he said the Environmental Protection Agency Superfund sites were not designed to burn toxic waste, but to basically be able to get rid of massive amounts of fatalities due to the pandemic that would be generated.